Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, it is game week, which means we get a weekly press conference with head coach Joey McGuire, as well as his offensive and defensive coordinators, Zach Kittley and Tim DeRuyter. We'll get thoughts from our friend Chris Level, who was in the room and on the scene. And, of course, we'll also get to engage in a favorite yearly tradition, deciphering just exactly what the word "or" means as it relates to a depth chart. All coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right.
Thanks so much for joining us on Locked On Texas Tech. I'm Casey Cowan with the only Chris Level. Great to be back with you and back into a game week. And Chris, it feels a lot more like a game week after you get past the introductory press conference and you get to hear from the head coach. They'll do it to kick off every week as we roll through the season. But it's kind of part of the pomp and circumstance, and makes you really understand that football season is upon us this weekend, right?
Can't have a game without a weekly press conference. Got to check that off the list first. Yes, absolutely. But Coach McGuire is excited, Casey. I mean, I think he mentioned today it's been 5 years since he was actually a head coach on the sideline. He's, obviously been at Baylor as a kind of a position coach / coordinator type role for the last 5 years. So he's looking forward to the pregame speech and all those different things. But I'm as excited as he is.
No question about it. I think that as we've gone through this entire offseason, obviously the energy that's palpable from that football program originates with Joey McGuire, and just about every time you're seeing Joey McGuire, there's an abundance of energy that's a part of what he's got going on. And it was not any different at the weekly press conference and hearing from Coach McGuire. It kind of seems like, Chris, I don't know what your interpretation is, but I feel like he's going to be, I won't call him an open book, but it doesn't seem like he's really afraid to discuss some of the goings on and the ins and outs with what's happening with his football team. I know he's not going to reveal everything, but he doesn't mind talking a little bit, it doesn't seem like.
He's as open as any coach I've been around. I agree. Depth chart, injury, and he's just laying out the parameters to start the press conference. Hey, if somebody's out for the year, we're going to tell you. If they're going to be out for this week, we'll also potentially let you know that too. But and then just kind of starting to go through the depth chart as he was pressed on it a bit. But I think it's kind of refreshing that he is as open as he is in this day and age when everybody seems to be locking up things and closing stuff and all that kind of thing. So as far as practices and all that stuff, but yeah, he's an open book. I think you nailed it.
You know, that really came to annoy me, the Fort Knox approach to college football information, practices, whatever it is, that I think materialized just within the last decade and a half. I mean, I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that about Joey McGuire when obviously you were boots on the ground for the Mike Leach era. And I think about some of the scenes at those Leach practices, and it's like the Chamber of Commerce invited everybody in town to come on down and check out a practice. But that has changed dramatically through the last handful of coaches, last decade or so here in West Texas for whatever reason, hadn't it?
Yeah, social media, I think, has a lot to do with that. I think there was some injuries and things like that, and people were there and they're broadcasting it or promoting it or talking about it. And I think it kind of started to not just here, but everywhere. And I think, the quarterback battles and just all the people that can see what's going on, because used to, obviously, nobody knew what the world was going on. And even if you were there, you had a feel for it, but there was nowhere to go tell anybody. And now, obviously, everybody's got a Twitter handle or an Instagram account, or I know you and we're big on TikTok.
That's right.
So that's right. So
the original TikTok enthusiast right here, right?
No doubt.
I don't know. Some of those years, I would just think, good grief, if you've got to keep it this much of a secret to gain an advantage, then you're probably not any good anyway. And for most of those years, obviously Texas Tech was not. And it just became more of an annoyance to me working in local media that seemingly there was more of a task to build a wall between the program and those who are covering and or observing that coverage, as opposed to facilitating that coverage. And I know that some of that probably ties back into the fact, too, that just about every athletics department in the country has got their own media wing or media arm, it seems like, now that they have at their disposal.
Yeah, and I think most of the time it's head coach driven. The head coach kind of dictates a lot of that. I mean, buttoned up big time under Cliff. That's the way he wanted it. It was, for the most part, I know he's a cuss word around here, but I mean, it was pretty much wide open when Tuberville was here. He didn't, he was glad-handed and talking about the weather and all that stuff. And I think Wells was kind of a happy medium, but to this point, I mean, Joey's been wide open with all that stuff. But yeah, he's very excited, and I think doesn't want to keep the fans from their program, if you will. And I think understands that's a big part of his job too, is kind of connecting the two together.
All right, Chris, let's turn to the actual press conference itself, and we'll get to some comments from Coach McGuire that we'll let the audience hear as it relates to the depth chart and some of what was revealed there, because I thought there were some interesting things to glean from the first look at the two deep that we got heading into week one. Of course, it's Murray State fitting the description of the first potential victim coming up this Saturday night. But in general, as the conversation progressed with Coach McGuire, what were some of the things that stood out to you, or some of the takeaways from his first official in-season meeting with the media?
I think I think that one of the things that stuck out was, and this is him being a player's coach, is he said, I feel like this team has worked hard enough and deserves a lot of fans to be there. I mean, he was trying to, basically tell the fan base, please come watch these kids. Please support them. They deserve it. They've worked hard. They've done everything we've asked. They're excited to play, all those things. They're trying to do the Raider walk and all those kinds of things. I thought it was interesting, too, because when you walk in the building, there's 1 and 0 signs everywhere. And there's like a Tech symbol and a Murray State symbol. And if you were in the restroom, it was like hydrate. If you were in somewhere else, it was like take 3. The turnover part. There was these little messages all over the place, but they're already trying to, because some of these guys, Casey, they've come from this level like Murray State is. So they know, I mean, you know what, you barely beat SFA last year. Zach Kitley is well aware of how close the Houston Baptist game was a couple years ago. So I just try to, and I think too, Murray State's a bit of a mystery. And so they kind of talked about that too. And that Coach Hood is a defensive minded guy. He was on Mark Stoops' staff at University of Kentucky. But I think that they're just kind of, you just can't be too careful. And so that was kind of some of the stuff that he kind of talked about as far as the opponent goes. But, he talked about some of his true freshmen. I think that'll get a look, and got into the quarterback stuff a bit more, which I thought was interesting. The 3 guys and kind of what they do well, maybe when we might see them or how they'll be used. And so, there's a few things that stuck out from what he said.
Aside from, anything going wrong, do you think Baron Morton actually does factor into seeing multiple? I can understand Donovan Smith, obviously, in some different situations, but I really wonder how deep you'll get into it in real furs flying moments.
I don't know. I think ideally you get so far up that you can get him some snaps in the normal portion of the game. That's a great question. I don't buy it. I don't know. It may feel forced, and I think it's him trying to keep Barron motivated. I don't know. I think we'll all kind of find that out together. But I think that he described Barron as a change of pace type guy that would come in there and they would move the pocket, and he's really accurate on the run. So I think that is, but I don't know when you want to insert that. I'm kind of fascinated to see that. I think it's one thing to say a lot of this stuff, but I just don't know. And when it comes to applying it, there's not a lot of snaps in those games.
Yeah,
exactly. They're shorter now than they used to. We're used to 100 something plays, and now it's back into the kind of the 80 play range or 75 play range, at least when you get to league play. So there's just not a lot of snaps.
Yeah. And did you want to share your hydration levels? Did you have – that reminds me of the Tom Herman, I think, urine color code chart. Do you remember that making its rounds on the internet?
It needs to be clear. If it's dark yellow, man, you're in trouble, man.
I just want to make sure you're doing all right and getting plenty of fluid, staying hydrated over there. What's the for those Tech fans who are not familiar with it, what's behind the take three motto or approach for the defense?
Turnovers. Just they want to try to take three away every that. I mean, and again, breaking news: everybody in the country wants to create turnovers, but they lead off their practice with one, ball security stuff on offense, and then takeaway stuff on defense. They're just trying to, like get those guys trained. That's the most important thing, because I mean the numbers and the data would show you that when you win the turnover battle, you're going to win a lot of your football games. So
it covers up for a multitude of sins, doesn't it?
There's no doubt that the magic number is 3.
Okay.
Because if you take 3 away on average, I mean, you're going to win the turnover margin a lot, and most every Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Hopefully the Texas Tech is going to have a defense that has the ability to do that.
Yep.
And man, with looking at this depth chart, some of those things that you see within that defensive secondary are really exciting, and I think maybe directly would play into your ability to impact that turnover number. We're going to get into the week 1 depth chart released by Texas Tech coming up directly ahead. You know who your starting quarterback is, and if you listen to yesterday's show, you're more familiar with some of the starters on the offensive line. But what else is there to learn from that week 1 depth chart? We will look at that coming up next. But first, Red Raiders, check in on our friends at BetOnline.net, the fastest and easiest way to meet your gambling needs. You got all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, games, and much more. You can also find reviews and news from every league: Major League Baseball, NFL, National Basketball Association, combat sports, NHL, golf, esports is even on the list, and of course, college football. They continue to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They've got you covered. And if you head to BetOnline today on your mobile device, you'll see things like a few lines from the Big 12 Conference. And Chris, some of these were sticking out to me. The 2 most interesting games of the week: Oklahoma State hosting Central Michigan, and Pitt and West Virginia getting together for the backyard brawl. Cowboys -21 at home against the Chippewas. Pitt -7.5 against Neil Brown and the Mountaineers. What are you making of those two?
A lot is expected out of Oklahoma State. I think the big thing to look out for at Oklahoma State this year is Jim Knowles leaving to go be the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. That is a big hole to fill, and they lost a lot of seniors on that defense. But I would think Oklahoma State will cover. They're just really good. They've been really good for a long time. They just can't beat Oklahoma consistently. Otherwise, we talk about them differently. I think that Pitt West Virginia game is a game much like Texas and Texas A&M that I wish it was played every year. Those people I've been up there in that area. They're wild about it. They hate each other legitimately. I think they've been playing it since 1895 was the first one.
Steel workers versus coal miners.
Absolutely. And so natural rivalry.
Yeah.
And we'll get to see, what Graham Harrell is doing from a play calling standpoint too. So there's your Texas Tech connection. And you mentioned Neil Brown, but that's a game that really, if West Virginia doesn't win that one, then Neil Brown really becomes more so on the hot seat, and so they've got a tough non-conference schedule with that game starting out. So we'll keep an eye on that one Thursday night. But I look for Pitt to be pretty darn tough again.
There you go. Head on over to betonline.net for more information on games just like that. And maybe if I had a specialty of the week, I could be looking to Austin. 31.5 over University of Louisiana, Bill Monroe. I don't think so. Just saying, but it's up to you. Head on over to betonline.net today, where the game starts. The Locked On Podcast Network. Appreciate you for making it your first listen with Chris Level I'm Casey Callan, and we've got Red Raider football just a few days away as Joey McGuire and Texas Tech are set to host Murray State for the season opener coming up Saturday night from the Jones. And that means we've got a fresh depth chart to pour over here this week, Chris. And there were some things sticking out on both sides of the ball, but I think one of the things that has gotten the most attention maybe from Red Raider fans just here in a short amount of time, some of the freshmen that have shown up within the two deep, and head coach Joey McGuire talked about just that, discussing with his freshmen the possibility of actually factoring in this year.
I talked to all my freshmen the other day about, making sure they understand that you can still play in 4 games in redshirt. But talking to both of those guys, I told them that, there's a chance that might not happen just because of their skill set. It's one of those deals. It's like they understand this. They came here to win. And they came here to play really good football, and they know they can help us do that.
It's on my mind, Chris. I want to ask you if you noticed this, but at the very end of that comment, when he talks about those players coming here to win, Joey McGuire mentioned a few times in the press conference, didn't he, what he's here to do, and that is win. That stood out to me a couple of times that was at the forefront.
Yeah, and I think he's made it very clear that – it doesn't matter how you get to that point, or running it or throwing it, or if we got to win a game 10-3 or 42-40, if we're going to use more than one quarterback, whatever. It's just it's a group effort, and you're right. At the end of the day, that's all he is focused on. It's just winning the game and winning enough to matter at the end of the year. But whether that's using true freshmen as we're talking about here, or whatever it may be. But yeah, there's just 3 true freshmen on the depth chart, Casey, and Bryson Donnell is on there as a running back. I don't think that would be a situation where I don't expect to see him a ton. I think he's there because Cameron Valdez is going to be out for a week or two, based on what Joey McGuire said. I think Coy Aiken is a guy from Stephenville, a receiver that I think has a chance to maybe be on this or play all season, I should say, because of what he can do mainly on special teams, but certainly a wideout too. Out of Stephenville, but Joseph Adidere is the one that I think is clearly a guy that he's going to factor in all season long. He plays the position that is going to, I think you need him. I think he's good enough. I think he's strong enough. He doesn't know everything yet, and he's not seen stuff that he's going to see this season. But you just don't have a ton of quick twitch guys on the edge of that defensive line that are versatile and quick, and he was one of those highly sought after guys you brought in from a recruiting class standpoint.
Well, I wanted to ask you about his recruiting background as a prospect. He's from Mansfield, Texas. What was his recruitment like, and what was it like for Texas Tech?
Well, he was all Joey McGuire. I think that's a guy that when Joey gets the job, he's one of those guys that jumped on. Like, he was one of those. I don't think you're getting him unless you have Joey McGuire as your head coach. He was part of that initial wave of good news, and like, we're here to recruit, because Joey had the benefit of being here as the head coach, but not having to coach the team. He was just solely focused on recruiting. And so, yeah, Joseph was one of those guys that he got early on.
Excited to see him factor in and being there behind Tyree Wilson, just thinking about the possibilities of what could be there in the future for Texas Tech is very exciting. And one of those places in the trenches that typically, from a physical standpoint, it's difficult to acclimate immediately from a high school to a college level, but seems like he can't be ignored. He's definitely one of those names that you've heard about throughout fall camp is turning some heads, obviously. I am curious about Coy Aiken, however, because you look at what this kid did in Stephenville as a high school senior, and it just kind of seems like maybe he's one of those guys that could find his way into also just not being ignored. And I know that you talk about, 4 games and a red shirt, and Coach McGuire talked about that as well. And as a matter of fact, let me let you listen in to head coach Joey McGuire on Coy Aiken.
Coy brings a lot to the table. This is a kid that led the nation for whatever reason, was an under-recruited kid, but led the nation in receiving yards and catches, and he brings a lot to the table when it comes to wide receiver, but he also brings a ton to the table in the return game. I feel good about our returners, but, throwing him back there, he's just natural at it. He's a big body, and so I would expect him, to possibly play in 4 games in redshirt. But if he does what he's been doing in practice, then there's a chance he doesn't redshirt at all.
Special teams guy, blue collar. He's much like the guy that I was talking about in yesterday's show at the very end, Brady Boyd. Just kind of catches everything that comes his way. Swiss Army knife type football player that can just do a variety of things for you. And he was one of the most productive high school players in the year last year. I don't know how his stats off the top of my head, but
like 2,100 yards, 31 TDs, almost 100 catches, I think.
Yeah, and so he just off the charts. And at the high school level, when you play like that, it's like the other team knows, okay, this is where they're going with the ball. And for him to still continue to put up those numbers when everybody knows kind of that's where the ball's going is very, very impressive. Yeah,
there's no question about that. So the freshman we'll step away from for just a moment. One other guy I wanted to talk with you about is someone that was mentioned to me by quarterback Tyler Shuck in our conversation with him on Black Label Radio last week. I asked him about a guy in practice when he's at the line of scrimmage looking across at Texas Tech defenders. Who's the guy that's getting his attention? Who's the guy does he know that he's really having to account for prior to every snap? And he mentioned the name Kosai Eldridge, who apparently has worked his way into a big opportunity this year. What's going on with Kosai?
Yeah, he's kind of played some safety. Now he's kind of like this linebacker. He's one of these hybrid types. I think that he's a program guy. He's been here for many, many years now. It feels like, in some ways, it feels like he just got here. And in other ways, it feels like that he's been here for a long time. And he's listed as a senior. But I think that this is kind of his time. And I think he's had a really good offseason. I think, Coach DeRuiter said today, or said in the weekly press conference, hey, he had a good spring, not a great one. But I think he's had a really, really good to maybe even great fall camp. And he's been consistent. He's healthy. And I just think he's one of those guys that can do a little bit of everything for you. You need to drop him in coverage. You need to send him after the quarterback. All the above. So, Kosai is certainly one of the key parts of this defense.
Well, hopefully he's getting the attention of other quarterbacks as we run through the schedule, but has already gotten the attention of his own quarterback and Tyler Shuck as we wrap up fall camp. One more bit of sound from head coach Joey McGuire. You and I spent a good bit of time yesterday talking about this Texas Tech offensive line that is coming into form, but what kind of form exactly, of course, remains to be seen. Here is Coach McGuire on the guys up front.
Ready to go, but it's going to also be, I think, a real battle. We're planning on playing probably between 7 and 8 offensive linemen in this game for a couple of reasons. One, we want to see what these guys do, of course, in a game. But there's still some position battles. That right tackle is a real battle with Ty coming back. He had a great week last week. Monroe has made a huge stride in his pass blocking this last week, so I'm really excited about that. And, again, I just continue to challenge Hamby, like, are these their best 5 guys? Whenever you have a room that you really are too deep and you have a guy like Jacoby Jackson who had a great camp, is he better playing – does he make us better playing right guard instead of backing up Weston at left guard? It's just one of those deals that's going to be a couple weeks like that to really see where we're at. Because, I've said it since the day I've got here. If you're going to win at a high level, you're going to win at a high level because you're O-line and D-line. And, that's something that we're going to continue to stress. I do think we are light years ahead of where we were in the spring.
Yeah, big people. That's how Baylor won the league championship last year, the conference championship last year. Is just big people. That's why I think that a lot of people feel like they may be the team to beat this year because they're so good on the lines of scrimmage. And I think that's what they're trying to get that solidified here at Texas Tech. And Joey, we've touched on that, threw a lot of those assets toward that position group. But yeah, offensive line, going to play as many as 7 or 8 guys, which is fascinating because that's the one position typically on offense or defense. You're going to play a lot of receivers. You're going to play a lot of defensive linemen and everything on defense. And you're going to rotate running backs, and you may play 1 or 2 quarterbacks. But typically, if you have those offensive lines set, you leave that group alone. You turn them loose. So it tells you they're not real sure who the best 5 guys are just yet. So we'll have to wait on that answer for a time. But playing 7 or 8 will be interesting because, again, they're tipping their hand a little bit. They don't really know all the answers just yet. And I think at right tackle, or you mentioned Jacoby Jackson, who's listed as a backup maybe. So we'll see.
Yeah, and how much time do you have to figure this out? Approximately about 15 minutes before you got top 25 opponents on your schedule coming up after Murray State. It seems like to a football coach, winning in the trenches means winning overall. It seems like that is the most elementary thought that any football mind could ever possess. But somehow it also seems like plenty of them don't possess that thought. And the Baylor example is a great one, and that's part of what I'm so interested in with Joey McGuire being the head coach at Texas Tech, Chris, was the fact that he was there and in the midst of, and it didn't just start with Dave Aranda, so clearly this has been going on for a bit in Waco, but in the midst of a program that revitalized itself, and to say revitalized means they were there before. They really weren't. I guess for the first time, turned themselves into a program built from the inside out that was going to compete for conference championships on a relatively consistent basis. And it tickles me pink to hear Joey McGuire say things like he said just there. Heard him say earlier in the week, they believe mass kicks ass when you're talking about the type of bodies that they want on the field. This seems like day one, football 101 type of stuff. But unfortunately, maybe I take that for granted, and it's not actually that to every coach, but it seems like it is to Joey McGuire, doesn't it?
Well, and it's hard to get good big people. That's the. I think everybody knows it for the most part, but and here you're going to get some good ones, but you're going to have to also get some guys and develop the heck out of them too.
Sure.
And that's what they did at Baylor. Because I think the Alabamas, the Texases, the Oklahomas, they usually get the best big people that are ready made, and right. I think you've got to figure that out. But you're right. That's how you win it, especially in this league now.
Hope to see those things trending upward for sure. You've had some nice things to work with defensively up front in the trenches, but the offensive line has just been a complete mess going on the better part of a decade plus. Had some good players here or there, but feeling like that was a reliable group from week to week. I really couldn't even tell you the last season. I felt like that was the case. And certainly going into this year, there's no reason to feel like that's the case right now. But maybe Stephen Hamby will get the job done, and they'll surprise us to a degree. I think there's a little more known, as we talked about yesterday, about the left side of it, with a whole lot of who, what, when, and where maybe on the right side. But that's what week one is for. And maybe typically you've got some non-conference dates otherwise to toy around with some of those things. But as we touched on yesterday with Houston and NC State, 2 top 25 teams in weeks 2 and 3, you don't have much time at all to toy around with anything before you've got a real challenge coming up for that offensive line. So only time will tell, but we'll begin to learn some things coming up here this weekend against Murray State. And coming up directly ahead, you're going to learn some things about Murray State. You probably don't know much about Murray State because why the hell would anybody know much about Murray State? But courtesy of great Chris Level and myself, we're going to educate you a little bit more on the Racers of Murray State. Coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech.
Got it. One.
Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, the original CNC Electric Factory. Right, Chris? We're the only one that I know of, which makes us the original.
Going way back, man. What is that? Late 80s, early 90s on CNC Music Factory. Whoa.
Hey, for us, it wasn't way back. We were there. It's just the other day, right? Just the other day. Appreciate you guys for hanging with us on Locked On Texas Tech, your team every day. And, of course, we'll have a Wednesday edition coming up for you tomorrow. We're going to take a little closer look at new offensive coordinator, but familiar name on the campus of Texas Tech, Zach Kittley. We'll get into a little bit more coming up on Wednesday's episode. Before we're out of here on today's episode, we want to get a little bit further into just exactly what's going to be on that eastern sideline Saturday night at Jones Stadium. It's the Racers of Murray State. Before we get Chris's thoughts, let's get the thoughts of the head coach, Joey McGuire.
2 teams that are led by defensive coaches. Coach Hood does a great job. You can see their turnaround in 2020, one of the biggest turnarounds in college football. The last 2 nights I've watched them play Cincinnati. Should have been up at halftime against a team that played in the Final Four Missed a kick right at the end of half. They would have been up 10-7 against Cincinnati at Cincinnati, and then played Bowling Green really tough. So saying that, they're not going to come in here and be intimidated by us. So we're going to have to do a great job of being the best team at 7 p.m. In that stadium. Two teams that are very effort-based. Usually get that with defensive coaches, head coaches, and watching them. That's one thing that we're going to talk to our guys about, who's going to play harder the longest. And so excited about playing a team like that because y'all know I've said from the day I've gotten here how hard we're going to play as a team. So it's good to play a team like that. They've got a quarterback coming back that's very athletic, so we're going to have to really be responsible whenever it comes to the zone read and making sure that we're putting the ball in the guy's hands that we want it to be in. Tough thing is they've got a veteran running back and Weatherspoon that's coming back that's a really good football player. They returned 5 or 6 on offense and 5 or 6 on defense. So this is a veteran squad that's going to come in and give us a really good game week 1. So, again, excited about playing these guys.
Murray State is they're going to focus on the run game. Okay, and I think they will try to, in my opinion, this is a team that typically wants to shorten the game and lean on that run game, huddle up, kind of shorten it,
What?
which is, yeah, exactly. And that's typically what these teams do when you have to go, when you take the paycheck and go on you want to make that game as short as possible, kind of like SFA did last year.
Yep.
And then defensively, they'll kind of drop everybody back a bit and try to keep everything in front of them because they know that their speed and depth and all that will be tougher. Could be a bigger day for guys like Taj Brooks and Sridder Thompson if they give you a light box and you can run it and attack it. But DJ Williams is a good player, their quarterback, and I think he's they have a really good running back. I think there's some returning guys on that offensive line. But that'll be, and we'll get into some more Murray State as we go along this week. But that's kind of the, Murray State 101 on kind of what I think you can expect. But he tells you, I mean, Cincinnati played the playoff last year, and they for a half it was a game, and then it wasn't. And so maybe that's how sometimes these games go. But the longer you let them hang around, the more confidence they get.
That is that's a deadly game to allow a team like that to hang around because by the time you get in the into the third quarter, and it's, 7-10 points, it's just a game at that point. There's not
they have
recruiting
rankings
there's no star rankings or anything that are going to make any difference. And as a matter of fact, in these types of ball games, Chris, if it is a game at that point, the other guys probably have the advantage because the favored guys are over there wondering, what the hell's going on? Nobody's feeling good on that sideline. And the other guys are jacked up to possibly be in a game late in it with a Big 12 football team. So it's a challenging position to be in. And given what Joey McGuire describes there as this team being an effort-driven team, well, it sounds even more dangerous to me because you're probably talking about some high-character guys, some tenacious guys, some guys that are not going to be put off by the fact that, one football program gets this many millions of dollars and one gets this many less than millions of dollars. Yeah, right. So I hope that from word go, you're going to see what has felt like a lead up this offseason to a team that wants to run through a brick wall. And I think that's going to be very, very necessary. You told us a couple of things about Murray State. I feel like now I got to tell you something about them. Did you know that they count among their alums the great Ronald Popeye Jones?
I did. Former Dallas Maverick.
Former Dallas Maverick.
And I think I was on the coaching staff there for a bit. Yes.
One of the most beautiful men to ever grace the state of Texas. Anybody will say that. Yeah. And also the great Gary Guthrie. I hear you wondering out there who that is. Wikipedia told me that he's the creator of the classic rock radio format. Okay. A lot to be grateful for there, right?
Good to know. Good to know. Had no idea.
Top 100. I don't know. So way to go,
Gary. Yeah,
Murray State. I'm gonna rank Gary behind Popeye Jones, with all due respect to Gary, but both valued alums for the Racers there at Murray State. All right, we're out of here, and we got another one coming up tomorrow because we are your daily Texas Tech podcast. We'll be back at it with a Wednesday edition. As I mentioned, we'll take a little closer look at Zach Kittley, new Red Raider offensive coordinator, but of course, a surname that is not new to Texas Tech fans here in West Texas. And of course, after Locked On Texas Tech, wants you to check out Locked On Big 12. When you make Locked On Texas Tech your first listen, you're getting it before you're even out the door in the morning. Then you're making the second listen, Locked On Big 12, with our buddy Josh Neighbors, who is covering the conference from top to bottom. So check out Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And we will see you tomorrow. Chris, enjoyed it once again. We'll be back at it tomorrow for a Wednesday episode.
Keep hope alive, people.
Always. That's the only option we have. For Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. We'll see you tomorrow on Locked On Texas Tech.